There were a number of musicians who came from Chattanooga that ended up playing all over the world. One of them was the late great Mr. Wilford Middlebrooks. But there were also a family here called the Blanton Sisters. And they had a brother named Jimmy Blanton, who was a world famous bass player. Chattanooga produced a number of very talented musicians, and one of the reasons why, believe it or not, was music education. The history has the city and its black schools of always providing music education. When I finished school in 1966, I was burned out on instruments. I had played from the time I was 9 years old. Now listen to our schedule. Monday through Friday, we played from 2 o'clock until 4 at school. On Saturday, we went to Howard School and played from 9 to 12. Who was in that band? Your Hamilton County Attorney, Reuben Taylor. Who was in that band? The world's highest grossing actor, Samuel L. Jackson. Who was in that band? An investment banker named Lamont Partridge, who still lives here. Who was in that band? The former CEO of Erlanger Hospital, Charles Etta Woodard. Who was in that band? The head of security for Eagles Stadium, Gifford Jemison. Who was in that band? George Jett was the former band director at Prairie View A&M. Who was in that band? Gail Oglesby, a leading South Carolina social worker, and I can go on and on. In that band, 95% of the people graduated from high school. We only had one dropout. 40% of us went to college, 30% of us went to the military, and 20% of us went to good jobs. Only one person in the class of 1966, only one person in the class of 1966 at Riverside High School dropped out of school. Now compare that to what's happening today. Middlebrooks comes out of here. The other famous person, really not Bluz, but I need to tell you about. Do you all know the music of James Brown? Remember Cold Sweat? He was part of that. He can tell you more than I can. There was a rhythm that the bands in Chattanooga used to play called a rumba beat that ended up being the drumline on Cold Sweat. It's known as the Chattanooga sound. And as Mr. Joe Burke told me, and Mr. Price probably played it, they would play that number because it would make people dance. There was a club in the next block upstairs where you played, and that's where that sound came from. So whenever you hear that James Brown beat that was stolen by Public Enemy, they never paid Clyde for it. When you hear that James Brown beat that was stolen by the Beatsy Boys and all them other groups, it's Chattanooga. That was Clyde Stubblefield. And that beat,
Joe Burke was doing it first.
And Joe Burke taught Clyde Stubblefield. So there's a genealogy. This is also the hometown of the famous Impressions, the Chattanooga Impressions, who went to Chicago, met a man named Curtis Mayfield and another man named Jerry Butler, and they made history. They are still working. There's a Motown producer that I grew up with who worked for Columbia Records and was a bass player who left Chattanooga one night at 16 years old to get on a bus to go play. His name is Skylar Traub. So I could go on and on about that, but this city and this street has produced a tremendous, think about it like this. Chattanooga's produced one of the top current R&B folks, Raymond Usher, and one of the top actors in the world, my brother Samuel Jackson.